Hey everyone! Doom Eternal is finally here, and I'm excited to finally give my opinion on this game. Now, I'll say that I'm going to have a non-spoiler part of the review at the beginning, and then after that I'll be giving my full review, because it's hard to give an opinion without spoiling some stuff. So for those of you that like to fast forward through videos, you've been warned. Alright, let's jump knee deep into this one. Alright, we're going to start this one out by discussing the gameplay, as it's extremely fast-paced this time around and will keep you engaged at every moment. In the 2016 predecessor of Eternal, I found that I was able to stand still a large amount of the time while fighting. Well, that's not true at all in this game. You have to move nearly constantly, otherwise you're toast. This is mostly because the enemies will try to swarm you pretty heavily. At the same time, there have been some changes to the mechanics of 2016. This time around, you basically have to use the chainsaw at every soonest convenience to keep your ammo reserve filled. Many negative reviews I have seen of this game, they've been saying that this is a low ammo simulator. Well, I think those people just haven't figured out how often you need to be using the chainsaw. My rule of thumb is, if my chainsaw is automatically gained a gas can, it's time to find a fodder enemy and to give them the hard end of the chainsaw. You'll also have to be using your glory kills very often to keep your health up, because on your first playthrough, and especially earlier on, you're gonna get hit a lot. Now, as far as weapons go, this time around, I'm definitely happy with some of the changes that were made. First off, they got rid of the pistol, which I didn't use much at all in Doom 2016, so I'm happy with that. The regular shotgun was beefed up a bit, making it feel a little bit more useful as part of the arsenal. With the weak points on enemies, which is a new implementation, the grenade launcher becomes a part of the weapon that will be useful until the very end of the game. I shied away from using the full auto upgrade for the shotgun for quite a long time, because I thought it would be a complete waste of ammo, but it's actually pretty great because it can take down a relatively strong enemy in a very quick amount of time. As far as the heavy cannon goes, I think this is my least favorite weapon in the game, without any modifications. That being said, the sniper mod is really useful, again because of the weak points, and it can also be used to pick off some enemies before you dive straight into battle. The mini missiles definitely have a use, again, just like the full auto for the shotgun, in taking down a decently difficult enemy in a quick amount of time. Other than that, I only really used the heavy cannon unmodified when I was out of ammo for my more useful weapons. The super shotgun I feel like has been downgraded a bit from 2016 in its ability to shoot fast, because they got rid of the double trouble mod, which gave you the ability to fire twice before having to reload. This is actually a good thing, because by the time I fully upgraded the super shotgun in Doom 2016, it was pretty much the only weapon that I used. I want to come out and say that I felt like by the end of 2016, I was past ready for the game to end, because I was way too overpowered. Changes like what they did with the super shotgun made me not feel that in Eternal, but I'll iterate more on how they grew the difficulty in a nice way later on. The rocket launcher was modified this time around to increase the splash damage done to the Doom guy, which I'm fine with. Again, id was really focused on not making the player be too OP this time around, and I think that they did a fine job with that. Making the rocket launcher more difficult to use added to the challenge, but wasn't frustrating at all to me. I only used the remote detonation mod a couple times, and I can see how it could be useful if you're attacking a swarm of enemies, but I found the lock-on burst to be much more useful for getting damage on larger demons while keeping distance from them. The chain gun this time around is still badass, and definitely was a powerful weapon. I did feel that it overheated a bit quick before it was fully upgraded, and the weapon mod to have it not overheat was the last one I got, but I enjoyed the implementation of the chain gun here. It can wreck enemies, but it takes some moderation to not waste ammo. Also, the only enemy not returning from the original Doom games is the chain gun guy, which honestly I'm totally fine with. If one of the enemies was running around with this thing, and they had weapon mods, that would've sucked. Also, I wasn't really a fan of the shield mod for the chain gun. It just didn't add much to my destructiveness, and as the Doom guy, it's all about destroying instead of defending. I'm so happy with what they did with the plasma gun in this game. I really didn't like what it did with it in 2016, and I'm happy to return to the weird looking accordion design from the old games. With the mods, I wasn't a big fan of the microwave beam. I tried it a couple times, but it only locks on to one enemy. I find the heat blast mod is much more useful, especially because of the consistency of enemies swarming the player in Eternal. The ballista is the answer to 2016's Gauss cannon, and it can be pretty useful in certain scenarios. However, due to the time it takes to charge up the destroyer blade, I found that mod to be almost completely useless. The arbalest is useful though once fully upgraded, and definitely is a fine tool to take down flying enemies. The BFG 9000 returns this time around, and it's just as badass as ever. Vaguely point, shoot, and win. It's actually funny how sometimes the game puts you in a situation like this, where you're not going to use the BFG. I mean, you could get through that without it, but it's not worth the effort. There's also this updated frag grenade, freeze grenade, and flamethrower attachment to your Praetor suit that are super useful. I personally liked the frag grenade over the freeze grenade. You have to choose between the two, as it was a good way of collectively adding up damages on swarms. The freeze grenade is useful though if you want to stop some quick moving enemies in their tracks. Just like glory kills and the chainsaw, the flamethrower is going to become a staple that you want to use all the time, as enemies that are on fire will drop armor. I know, that is a preposterous sentence to say, but hey, it added an element to the game, and I think it was implemented really well. There's also this really strong punch that the Doom guy has this time around. There is quite a lot more movement mechanics in Eternal, mainly being the wall jumping, wall climbing, and pole swinging. I'll admit, the first time I saw the wall climb animation, I thought it looked utterly ridiculous. It's like this goofy Spider-Man shuffle, and then the reaching and flying thing is pretty hilarious. There's a video on YouTube of someone who figured out how to play the game in third person, which shows this animation from that angle, and it's really hilarious how they pulled this off. Basically, there's two gigantic arms that hover to the side of Doom Guy when you climb. I'll put a link in the description for you to check out. The pole swinging doesn't look as ridiculous, and added a fun element to the game. Don't get me wrong, I liked both of these additions and enjoyed using them, but I think the animations are a bit goofy. That actually leads me to my next point. The goofy factor of Doom Eternal. There is a really odd dichotomy going on in Doom Eternal. With a serious story, this time I think it's a much better story than 2016, gory gameplay, and a Looney Tunes element going on all at the same time. In Doom 2016, I think the game was successful because it was hardcore, gory, but it didn't take itself too seriously. Well, they definitely didn't take themselves too seriously at all in Eternal. In fact, for the first few levels, I was genuinely upset. I was ready to rip and tear this game a new one, because I seriously felt like I was playing Ratchet and Clank,
To view the world map, press Select or R.
meets Halo, meets Celeste. I mean, check out this animation here. I thought this was the most ridiculous thing. Again, don't get me wrong, I like all of these game series, but I didn't want it in Eternal, and I definitely wasn't expecting it. There's also a good amount of hand-holding in Eternal, which added to this feeling that this was an M-rated game made for 9-year-olds. Actually, this was intentional. Hugo Martin said in an interview, "I do want it to be something that my 9-year-old could play." At first I was pretty upset about this direction, but then something happened. I went into this Slayer Gate, and it all opened up. The game became not just good, but utterly fantastic for me. This is what I signed up for. Wall-to-wall action, big-ass enemies, a challenge, and something that actually killed me once or twice. Before this moment, I hadn't encountered anything like this and really wasn't digging it. After this moment, I was completely hooked. Basically, this game isn't about being gory or disturbing, and it's not about being serious. It's about having fun. And for the rest of the game, pretty much, I had a blast. I will say, there are 2 titles from colossally important series that I have played in the past few years that follow this same exact motif. One is Eternal, and the other is Mortal Kombat 11. They are 2 of the goriest games I can think of currently. And they are also 2 of the games I can think of that are completely ridiculous.
I need an answer, it's killing me. What's the trouble, Double Double? Are we Johnny Cages or Johnny's Cage?
Actually, I saw in an interview where Ed Boon said something along the lines of how he would nix fatalities if they're too realistic, or if they're too dark. There needs to be a bit of whimsy with the over-the-top gore, which is what makes things like this enjoyed by the masses.
Cut! Reset!
Deadly uppercut, take 2.
Action! Cut!
Who hired this guy? What the fuck?
Deadly uppercut, take 19.
I personally believe this is why things such as Kill Bill are so fantastic. When you have a bit of darkness mixed in there, it just becomes disturbing. I have never played any of the new Wolfensteins, but I did watch a video of each of the main character deaths, and that's really dark. Once it goes there for me, it's not about fun as much as it is about a serious, dark story. Going back to comparing Mortal Kombat 11 and Doom Eternal real quick, everything is unlockable in Doom Eternal by a decent amount of playing the game, but nothing ridiculous or over the top. Mortal Kombat took the other direction that is becoming popularized in gaming today by making their game similar to a mobile title. Oh yeah, you can play the game for an unbelievable amount of time and possibly unlock everything, or you can throw money at the game and unlock stuff. I am so glad that id and Bethesda did not take that direction with Doom Eternal. It just makes me love it even more. I won't linger on this point, but man, is this game absolutely gorgeous. They really stepped it up a notch this time with level design, and I had to look around sometimes to take in the sheer beauty of some of these maps. Each one is immersive and tells a story of what's going on in the environment. Alright, hopping over to the music of Eternal, I thought it totally slayed this time around. I wasn't the biggest fan of Gordon's OST in 2016, but I really enjoyed what he did here. We have metal, of course. We have cool industrial electronica metal. And we have satanic Gregorian chanting. There's a lot of interesting stuff here, and I'm really happy with what he did. I originally had something here where I was saying I hoped that the soundtrack was going to come out soon, but it's taking me forever to make this video, so it's here already. But some new insight has came. Apparently Mick Gordon is a little unhappy with how mixing has gone with the soundtrack for Doom Eternal, so he might not ever work on a Doom game again. Regardless, I have to say he did a fantastic job here, and many people enjoyed his work on Doom 2016. So I'd be sad to see him leave the series. Okay, the last bit of non-spoiler stuff I'll hit is glitches. Look, I'm fine with glitches. I understand why they happen, and hey, they make speedrunning what it is, which is cool. That being said, I'm not okay with finding glitches on my first playthrough of a game where I have to reload a checkpoint, where I'm confused to all hell about what to do. The first one I ran into was right here. I wanted to go back and look for some secrets I might have missed. Well, that's a big nope. I believe I somehow glitched through an invisible wall, which then would not let me return to where I had progressed. That's a big no-no. If you don't want me going back to an area, seal it off with a goddamn wall. I'm amazed a tester didn't find this one. Next we have this level. I believe I've seen some people complain about how to complete this part. Well, I'm fairly certain I never did it the correct way. I believe I exploited the distance that Doom Guy can grab a wall from. I'm not sure. This part was a little unclear to me though, but I don't believe this is supposed to happen. Moving on, this one might not constitute as a glitch, but it pissed me off. I like to be able to solve puzzles in games a magnitude of ways, and if I figure out a quicker method than the designers planned on, I expect to be rewarded by the same thing happening that should happen if I do it the way they wanted me to. Well, here's the deal. That's a wall that you are supposed to grab. I thought, oh, this looks like a fun, challenging little puzzle. What I thought you were supposed to do was wait for this little room to raise up, jump out, shoot this target to raise the bars, and then double dash onto the wall. I tried this for an unbelievable amount of time. It never worked. Look, if I can do this from this distance, I ought to be able to do this from this distance. Lastly, I have a funny one. Okay, so I don't think this is much of a spoiler, but there's Masters levels that will be released periodically of levels in the game. Essentially, they're the same levels that you play in campaign, but they have a crazy amount of enemies to slay. Well, sometimes they definitely place enemies in rooms where they probably shouldn't have. This one is a tyrant, which you might think is a cyber demon, but it's this whole thing because they had a cyber demon boss in the last game. I don't know. They changed a bunch of enemies. I don't know why they didn't just call this one a cyber demon, but whatever. Well, somehow this tyrant got stuck in the ceiling. After running around and fighting, I was like, cool, the tyrant got out of the ceiling. Well, this was only after shooting about 30 fodder enemies which kept respawning. And I was like, god damn, when is this going to end? After this, I ran back over and the tyrant was still stuck in the ceiling. Interestingly, the rocket launcher wouldn't even lock on. I was still able to kill him though. So, as far as glitches go, they only Bethesda'd this one a little bit. Alright, let's talk story and lore. Holy balls, there is a ton of it in Eternal. Look, I can't go into all of the lore in this game. There's hours of video already committed to just that on other channels. But what I will say is from the get-go, I was like, how in the hell did the Doom guy get here? From Doom 2016 to Eternal, it was like... Continuity! Literally nothing tells us about how the Doom guy ended up with this badass floating island ship thing or where he was transported to by Dr. Hayden. Fast forwarding a bit, we find out Doom guy is the Doom Marine we all know and love, which is really crazy. The whole time I heard this, I was like, why on earth is there a repetitive nature going on story-wise then? Why do we fight the same boss in 2016 that we did in Doom? And why do we fight the same boss in Eternal that we did in Doom 2? Why would that ever be a thing? Letting that slide, near the end of the game, we do the old switcheroo with Hayden and Vega. I was like, what are you doing? We are going to put so much trust into Hayden? Dr. S. Hayden? Which when said really fast sounds like, Satan? We are going to let that bastard from the first game become our trusted guy and possibly destroy Vega? Look, Doom Eternal is not a game for breaking the color theme since time immemorial, okay? Blue is good, red is bad. Everyone knows this. At the end, our ship looks like this. This is bad. And when we swap Vega out, he basically becomes the father, or thinks he's the father, or realizes he's the father, I don't know.
Now Insert Vader to activate the portal.
System acquired. Setting course for the Earth dimension now.
I can't see now. Am I the father, Dr. Vader?
Why does his voice pitch shift after this revelation too? That's the sequel baiting in Eternal, trying to get us to want the story to be completed. They do this all the time, like here.
I know of what you have left behind. Go back to him then. Leave this crusade. You cannot save them. They have asked me for this, and so I give it to them. If you let the priest live, then I will return to you what the demons took from you so long ago. You need only turn back, and it will be yours again. All the pain you carry will be gone.
What does the Doom guy want? Daisy? Because I saw her all over the game. I even tried to pick her up. Or here. Who the hell is the Seraphim? All signs are pointing to it being Hayden, but I think he's a bad guy, so I don't think he would purposefully upgrade our soul to become a badass slayer or anything. Who's the Dark Lord? Is that Lucy? Who knows? Who yells no when we kill the Khan Maker?
Your transgressions here will jeopardize all of creation.
I'm actually all in on that being the Dark Lord. When I saw this thing, I was like,
What the fuck is this shit?
I actually think that's the father though. During the game, I said to myself sometimes,
Who the fuck are you, lady?
and by the end of the game and after rereading the codex, I was like,
What the fuck does that mean? Has everyone gone fucking nuts? What the fuck happened to that guy's head?
oh, also, I can't be the only person that noticed a bit of Elder Scrolls influence here and there. The king looks like a ghost from Skyrim. It's cool, but I also feel it's a tiny bit out of place in a world with crazy devastating guns. Oh, also, I really applaud id and Bethesda for their symbology in this game. You can tell a ton of research went into this. If I had to guess, I would say most of these symbols are inspired by the Lesser Key of Solomon, which was made in the 1600s, and probably took some influence from Aleister Crowley and his crazy work too. Since I already hit weapons, I will touch on the two spoiler weapons. First off, we have the Doom Blade, which is like the Crucible, and I don't know. I don't know why they just didn't reuse that weapon. But anyways, we have a Doom Blade now. It's our own personal sword, I guess, from history or something. This weapon works fantastic. It just simply slices enemies, and it doesn't get used all too much throughout the game because of ammo limitations until the very end. We also have the Unmaker, which is a really cool weapon. I enjoyed it. It's rather devastating. It's taken from Doom 64. It did fantastic. The thing I like about it is its ammo reserve is a little bit better than the BFG, even though it shares the same ammo. So you can pick your poison. Do you want to lay waste to a lot of enemies and maybe save some ammo? It's also really useful for demons like the Tyrant. Or do you want to lay waste to tons of enemies, but possibly not have any ammo left over? That's your choice between the Unmaker and the BFG. My god, there is a ton of secrets and challenges in this game. I got them all on the first playthrough though, but I had to go back and revisit a couple levels. I really enjoyed this though. It's a fantastic way of breaking up the action with some fun puzzles. they are just challenging enough to be fun, but not so difficult that I needed a guide or something. I'm really happy with how they did the secrets, and I hope that translates its way into whatever the sequel will be. Oh, as far as the challenges go, I was happy with everything except for the left glory kill business. I was convinced they meant my left, not the enemy's left, which made for a lot of wasted time. As far as the Slayer gates go and the demon nests, I was happy with most of them, and sometimes they throw one like this at you. It's like, whoa, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that this quickly. Near the end of the game, I would just pull the BFG out sometimes just to get it done. They were all challenging and fun. Again, there was a bit of hand-holding with the boss battles, which I am a little bit upset about. The Doom Hunter was more of an annoyance whenever he popped up after the initial meet and greet, because it was always like, oh, I have to pull out my plasma rifle now. Whatever, he's not a bad enemy. This thing, I don't know, I felt like this was a silly boss battle. I think the giant shield face thing with a soul stuck in it, I just found it all a bit childish. Alright, on to this bastard. For a while, I was scared shitless of the Marauder. Every time he popped up, I backpedaled. But after a while, I finally got decent with the whole mid-range thing, and then he isn't too terrible. I actually really enjoy the change-up he adds to the fighting though, as he requires technique and skill, and you can't just blast him until he dies. I did try though, and it's not suggested. Moving on to the Con Maker, I thought this fight was a decent challenge. I enjoyed it, and I did enjoy killing her, but nothing in this game was as enjoyable to me as the final boss battle. Ever since we saw the Icon of Sin in Doom 2, we wanted to fight a gargantuan demon. Then in 2016, when we saw the skull of the dead one, we wanted to take down a Titan by ourselves. With none of this giant mech stuff. Well, here we go, and the fight does not disappoint. This is where the Doomblade comes into full effect. And I actually had a blast just running around and wrecking demons with the Doomblade over and over and over. The infinite refill thing was a great idea. Also, I feel like I'm in a giant boss battle. The Spider Mastermind fight from 2016 was a bit underwhelming for me, but the Icon of Sin was everything I hoped for. Okay, there's one last thing I have to talk about. There's two voice acting parts that I need to bring up. Here's the first.
You'll make a fine addition to the front line, stranger.
The demons! They are everywhere. Must kill them all!
And here's the second.
The priests command the armies to the north and south, but he controls the fight. The inner circle of death is where he resides, hunting them at the far reaches of the earth and beyond. I am a believer now. I feel it is in Doom that I have faith.
Man, when I heard both of these lines, I audibly said, oof. I literally got goosebumps from the amount of Gouda slathered all over these lines. Look, I'm totally cool with id giving the Doom guy a voice finally, but does it have to be like that? And the other line, man, you don't have to say Doom in a Doom game. These lines gave me the same secondhand embarrassment I get from some 90s movies lines.
A rabbit is in the administration system.
Send a flu shot.
Rabbit, flu shot, someone talk to me.
A rabbit replicates till it overloads a file, then it spreads like cancer.
Cancer?
Okay, all of this said, I'm a bit of a fan of the series. and I'm really happy with where id and Bethesda are going with this series, and I'm looking forward to where they continue to go. I will say, I hope that they take a bit of the silliness out next time and don't let it slack in the terms of taking themselves a little bit seriously. I also hope that they stop telling us how to do everything. I don't want to be told how to beat every boss. I want to be stuck trying to figure some things out. And I'm fine if I die a couple times. That's part of gaming, and we're all pretty much used to that by now. I do like that in this day and age, I can play a shooter that's like this, and not necessarily just like this.
Right on my X.
Heard.
It was Grumpy Monk.
Oh, yeah, okay, he is a hacker. What the fuck?
Bitch, what?
He's only a level 13. Yeah, he's definitely...
Oh! Oh, yeah.
I know that there is an online portion to this game, and I did play it a little bit, and it's interesting, and I might go into it at a later time. One thing I will say that I think id and Bethesda really messed up on was not having a deathmatch mode. I really would like that, and I personally didn't mind the one of 2016. I also would really enjoy to see a horde mode or something similar to what they did in Gears of War back in the day. I think that if we had these Slayer nests where you can go in there with a team and try to take it down on increasing levels of difficulty until, I don't know what would happen. Maybe the last level is 3 icons of sin and 10 marauders, I don't know. But I would really enjoy to see that. All of this said, this was a really good experience, but it's not what I would call an absolute masterpiece. Therefore, I award Doom Eternal 88 screaming Doom guys out of 100. Thanks for watching, and I'm happy that you watched my first review of a game that was made in the past decade. Alright everyone, see you next time. Stay safe, wash your hands, and have a good one.